What's up, suckers? It's me. I'm back after however long it's been. And I was gonna just go ahead and do like an update video, but seeing as the last video I did was an update video, I think, we're just gonna go ahead and pretend that it has not been forever since I've been here. And if any of you are curious about what happened to me, pretend. I don't know, make shit up. I don't care. Just make sure it's something really cool. If you are new here and you are just finding this channel, my name is Ariana Bradford. I used to be an ADHD coach, but through many changes in life, I actually no longer coach. However, I do still care about my ADHD people. I do still like to test apps, and I do still have a lot to say about ADHD, and there are a lot of things that I learned about ADHD, and there are a lot of friends I've made with ADHD and autism and everything in between. And so I'm still doing this channel just from a different point of view. And if that sounds like your kind of thing, if you just love having somebody help you figure out apps and how to use them, please go ahead and make sure that you subscribe and like this video. It helps people who might get something out of my video to find me, and it helps me find them, and we can still chill. So for the rest of you who are back because you've been here before, welcome back. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about AI journaling. So just a little bit of backstory. The thing that got me into AI journaling in the first place is kind of the same. I get the same reason from people with ADHD every time I ask why they don't journal. I always wanted to journal. I've always been a person who has, gone to my local Target and bought myself like the cute little journal, and usually says some shit like dream or like, dare to be or something. And I'll get all these like colorful markers and I'm like, today's the day my life begins. And then it doesn't work out. And I never really could understand why. And I've talked to a whole bunch of other people who have run into the same problem. And the number one reason that I heard from other people with ADHD that I also dealt with myself was that sitting down and writing felt hard for some reason. Even when my brain was fit to bursting with feelings or thoughts that just needed to be worked through, sitting down and trying to write felt hard, damn near impossible. And I don't really remember what made me think about it, but one day I said, what I like to do when I'm struggling through something is I like to talk. I like not necessarily, just talking out of my ass. Like I actually like to talk about the problem, but I prefer to talk to other people, or I prefer sometimes to even just walk around in circles talking to myself, but I prefer to talk. And the more that I thought about this, the more I started to realize that maybe I needed to think of a way to journal while talking. I did not invent this idea, obviously, but I did remember one client bringing up the concept of voice journaling. She had suggested the app Journify. I'm not going to talk about Journify because that app has since been abandoned, apparently. You can't even pay for it. It's such a weird situation. So I only mentioned Journify to let you guys know that it worked as a stepping stone to my finding the two apps we're going to talk about today. Before I get into those apps, I do want to give you two prefaces, preambles, whatever you want to call them. The first is that I am not sponsored by either of these apps in any shape, way, or form. I do love them both because I have used them both, and I have actually been in contact with the dev of one of them, but I am not working for them. I do have an affiliate link for one of them, but that was only after I started to use it, fell in love with it, and felt like more people needed to find it. And I knew that they would help give you guys a discount on it. So that was the only reason. Other than that, I actually have nothing to gain from this besides making sure that more people who need this for their mental health have it available. And the second thing that I wanted to bring up is I wanted to touch on the AI issue a little bit. I know that it is touchy for some people because I don't think people understand what AI should really be for. I think that there are people out there who, wrongly in my opinion, use AI to replace human creativity. I do think that AI has its place, and I think it's a helpful tool. And in these cases, in the cases of these two journals especially, I think it's amazing. I really do. And I think that it can be life-changing. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about these two apps. We're going to start with the first I tried, Untold. One thing that I want to tell you about Untold right off the bat is that it is only for Apple users right now. I seem to remember when I talked to the dev that eventually they will be adding it to Android, but I don't know when that is. So if you're like, fuck, what do I do? Go ahead and move to the next chapter, talk about Rosebud, learn about Rosebud. Rosebud is actually available for both Apple and Android. Okay. The rest of you who are here with me and have access to Untold on Apple products, I guess. I think that when people think about AI journaling, they think that they're just going to say stuff and then the journal is just going to respond with obviously computerized responses that don't feel real, that don't make you feel listened to. And that's just not the case with this app in any shape, way, or form. First off, the text-to-speech feature is amazing. It's really good. I have actually not run into anything that does as good a job as Untold does, because it doesn't just catch everything that you say for up to 24 hours, might I add. Hopefully you're not having that many problems, but if you are, there you are. But it does such a great job catching what you're saying, and then when it transcribes it, it actually splits everything into paragraphs and corrects sentences with punctuation. Like, it looks like you actually bothered to write this shit out, which is great. I don't know why that makes me happy. I guess just from a perspective of someone who likes to write. And at the end of every entry, you are then asked 3 questions based off of the things that you have talked about, and you are invited to go in even deeper into one of those 3 questions. When you're done with your entry, you've said everything that you want to say, you still can go even further by using the Ask This Entry tab. And it gives you, every time it's going to give you some suggestions of things you can do with the entry, but you're able to do just about anything. You can have it make a script for you if you're trying to figure out how to approach a difficult conversation. You can have it summarize your entry as a poem or a short story just to add a little bit of levity. You can have it come up with a structured plan if it's something that you're thinking that you're going to have to work through. It's really cool being able to just be like, yeah, I'm having a difficulty having this conversation with my friend, and then asking the entry or asking the app to turn that entry based off of the things that you've mentioned into a productive conversation. Every single entry is searchable. And if you have an overarching question, you are actually able to use the Ask Your Entries option, which is different from Ask This Entry in that it will actually index all of your entries for the last month of all time, the last week, and it will answer your question. So if you're like, how many times in the last month have I had a fight with my sister? It'll go ahead and it will say, you've mentioned arguing with your sister this many times. It is kind of a long process to wait for that, but if you really need that information, it's worth it. Now, with all of that, where Untold really shines is its content production. It has a number of native apps in it that take your content, take your entries, and make interesting things for you to read throughout the day about you. And it does everything from personality type analyses like Myers-Briggs or Enneagram. I don't know. Don't come for me. All right. Just the thing that starts with an E and ends with gram. But it does things like that to making a poem out of the things that you've been going through, or giving you a fable, or giving you non-violent communication suggestions. One of my absolute favorites was the psychological analysis. So you would talk about something and then it would give you an actual psychological analysis using actual psychological principles, just talking about what that had to do with what you're going through. And it was really great because it helped me feel validated. And for those of you who meditate, and if you don't because you're afraid of what that might be like, I promise you it's really not as bad as you think. It also has the option for you to generate personalized meditations and sleep stories using their native app. And to this day, they have been some of my favorite meditations. Because when you do it, first off, you can choose how long they're going to be, which is perfect because I am not a fan of these 20-minute meditations. I don't have the time. I really don't. I want you to teach me how to bring my mind back to my breathing, blah, 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 but I don't have 20 minutes to be doing it, okay? The rest of my breathing is generally going to have to be quite shallow and stressed, so I would just like you to teach me how to fix that in the 5 to 7 minutes that I got for that. And you can do that with Untold. You can set it to whatever time you need. And then all of the meditations are relevant to you because the app knows you from your journal entries. It knows the kinds of things that you're stressed about. And so the meditation that you get fits what you need. It is so great, and I loved it, and I loved using it every day. We even were letting my son use it through my husband's phone, and he was using it to kind of spill fears he had before bed, and then we would use the app to make him a sleep story, and it worked beautifully. I just can't say enough good things about this app. I think it's incredible, and if you can check it out, I think you should. At the moment, Untold is free. I have spoken with the devs and they are planning on putting in a payment structure soon. I do not know how much it is going to be. I do remember them saying, I think that it was going to be around $12.99 for the highest tier of content, but I can't be sure about that. Do not quote me on it. Just keep in mind that if you download Untold today and you use it and it's free, I do not know how much longer it will be free. That is just at the time that I'm recording this. So even by the time it comes out, it may not be. If it isn't, I will make sure to put in the video description what the actual cost of Untold is by the time you're seeing this. Otherwise, just, I don't know, plan on spending some money at some point on this app. And frankly, when I was first using it, I remember thinking that there is no way that something this good was going to stay free for long. So I think it's more than fair to pay them for the work that they've done. And I think that, it's worth it 100%. Now, I stopped using Untold, not because it's not amazing, but because I ran into this other one and it just simply fit my personal style more. This app is called Rosebud, and it's actually been around, I believe, a little longer than Untold. It started out as a web-only app and has since become a mobile app available for both Apple and Android. Originally, I was just checking out Rosebud, and I had this really stank attitude about it because I loved Untold so much I refused to change my mind, and then I wound up changing my mind. And the reasoning is very simple. Rosebud does not have anywhere near the amount of content available. It does not make meditations for you. It does not do sleep stories, but it is much more like talking to a friend or a therapist or whoever it is that you would feel that you need to talk to in a moment of crisis than Untold is. Untold is much more of a self-directed journey, whereas Rosebud is a lot more involved. It's a lot more personal. And I do want to be clear, in some ways, Rosebud does not stand up to Untold. It is not searchable. I'm very frustrated by the fact that when I finish a journal entry, if I realize that there's more that I want to add, I can't. I just have to start another journal entry, which irritates me. And heaven forbid you happen to get a phone call while you're recording, or you have to just leave the app. Often you will run into a situation where the app suddenly freezes and it might lose your transcript. That said, what I loved about Rosebud more is that I feel that its memory is better. I feel like it remembers the things that I tell it much better than Untold does. I do feel that sometimes I want to keep track of the different things that I'm talking about. So, for example, for a little bit while I was working on my fiction novel that I'm just happening to slip in there, finished it with 1 day left at the end of 2024, by the way. I'll be talking about that later in another video. But right now, while I was working on that first draft, I decided that I really wanted a place to keep track of events in the story that I wanted to remember, characters, different things that really needed to just kind of be put down somewhere. And I was able to make a separate journal within Rosebud just for my writing conversations. And that was great to have. And when you type in the description of whatever the journal is going to be and you name it, Rosebud already picks up on what that journal is supposed to be and will therefore prompt you with important questions about whatever it is that you're talking about. So it's great. You know, I would open it and it would be like, so what are we going to do with these characters? What events did you stumble upon that you're going to have to work on today? Things like that. The help you get from Rosebud is also a lot more active than passive. Instead of trying to ask you about working through your problems, it generally tends to make suggestions. It will call out unhelpful patterns, and it does give you the option to ask for certain suggestions in certain cases. There have been times where it has asked me, you know, how do you want to approach this conversation with somebody? And I've been like, I don't know. If you have any suggestions, I'd really appreciate it. And it legitimately would give me suggestions. I still remember one time I was very upset about something and I was talking about whatever the situation was and I'd been ranting about it for a really long time. And then I pressed the go deeper button, which is where you are asking the journal to respond and to answer you. And it said to me, have you thought of the fact that maybe you're using some all or nothing thinking right now and that that's not exactly how things are? And I can't punch my journal in the face because it's my phone, and I can't throw it because it's my phone. So I'm forced to sit there and think about how this journal read me. And I was like, how dare you? But also probably yes. Rosebud is also excellent for forcing you to think through the things that you might be struggling through. And if you need the equivalent of a kind, honest friend who's going to let you talk for as long as you want and then give you the advice that you need, that's what Rosebud is. And I personally work best when I am able to bounce my concerns and my frustrations off of an actual person who can talk back, which is very much what the experience using Rosebud is. Now, there are a couple other cool things in this app that I really appreciate. I really like the fact that based off of what you say, you can do what's called, I think, happiness adjustments or happiness suggestions. I'll look it up after this and I'll edit it onto the bottom of the screen in case I got the name wrong. But basically what it'll do is it'll offer goals based off of the things that you've been talking about that you can add to the front page, basically turning Rosebud into a habit tracker, just in case that's something that you've been needing. I also really think it's kind of cute. At the end of 2024, it kind of did its own little wrapped, kind of like Spotify does. And in that, you know, it kind of wrapped up the number of words I did, the number of entries I did, and it gave me like a spirit animal. I got a resilient bear and got to see like in what ways I showed resilience and things like that. So that was also really cool, just kind of getting the feeling that the journal had been paying attention to me over the last few months. So talking money, Rosebud is not free. You are looking at either $12.99 a month or about $108 a year, which comes to a little bit less per month when you pay the whole amount. However, if that amount sounds like a lot for you, they do have discounts, student discounts and disability discounts. So I would suggest checking the website before you decide that that's the amount you are going to have to pay. They were also actually super kind. Remember, I told you that I wanted to be able to give you guys a deal. They were super kind enough to offer up a link that is in the description, wherein you guys would be able to get 15% off the premium plan. So if you guys really like that, then you would be able to get a little bit of a discount. Just make sure that if you use the link in the description, you do it on web, because you can't enter any sort of code or anything like that using the App Store. You can go ahead and use that link, or you can use code ADHDone at checkout and then download the app on your phone, and it will honor that price. Now, if you've heard all of this and it all sounds great, but you're like, I don't know which one to use, the best way that I can put it for you is that if you are a person who is already in therapy, who prefers to do more of a self-directed kind of practice, you want something that feels more like actually journaling rather than talking to other people, you find that you are going to need something that's going to keep you coming back to the app regularly, then you are going to want to use Untold. If you are a person who needs to talk to people, really needs to talk things out, you can't really afford a therapist, unfortunately, so you're kind of looking for something to at least help in that realm, crave direct feedback and want to feel like you are having a real conversation, and also would like something to help you keep track of your goals, then I would suggest using Rosebud. And at the very least, if you are really struggling and are like, yeah, but I still have no idea, you can try both of them out. They both have free trials. Like I said, at least at the time that I'm recording this, Untold is still free. If it is not, at the time that you visit in the description, then they should probably have some sort of free trial for you to try. Just give it a shot and see which one really speaks to you. But I highly suggest either one of them. Love them both, and I think that they are doing great things for mental health, which especially these days is paramount. It's extremely, extremely important. And in case you're wondering why it is that I feel that these things work so well, I think that ADHD brains move so fast that being forced to sit and write feels kind of torturous. It feels like you're having to slow everything down, which can be helpful in some cases, but in other cases is not. Whereas your mouth moves as fast as your brain does most times, and so it's much easier to say out loud what's bothering you, to talk through the things that are bothering you, than it is to sit and write them. So I do think that if that sounds like you, this is going to be your answer. I now journal every day, and sometimes I journal multiple times a day when I'm really agitated. So it is 100% worth at least trying. So hopefully this first video back was very helpful to you guys. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be talking about this stuff again. Ask any questions that you have in the comments. If you try these and you have an opinion, please share it. Thank you very, very much for being here. Drink plenty of water, take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next video.